So I decided to go to the Traverse City Film Festival for the first time, and it was pretty awesome. I had never been to a film festival before, and this one in particular sounded interesting to me. I always thought Traverse City was a fun town to visit, and this is one of those events where the town just becomes alive every time it comes around, and you always see something interesting at every turn. The festival was founded by Michael Moore back in 2005. He wanted to use this festival as an opportunity to expose the people of northern Michigan to more films than just mainstream movies, and to give people who are passionate about films an opportunity to network with people in the industry. Now, I know Michael Moore is a bit of a controversial figure and everyone seems to have an opinion on him, but what he did for filmmakers by opening up this festival is pretty admirable, to say the least. Well, it's not often you pay to go see the movie at a high school, so let's check this out. The Red Turtle was the first film that I saw at the Traverse City Film Festival. I realize this film's been out for a while now, but this is the first time I've seen it, so yeah. I've been meaning to watch more films from Studio Ghibli, and from what I've seen so far, I'm pretty impressed. And The Red Turtle is no different. And even though Spirited Away is technically a better movie, I think I enjoyed The Red Turtle pretty much on the same level as that film. At first, the movie just feels like an animated version of Castaway, but everything changes once the title character appears. With no dialogue at all, unless you count yelling and grunting as dialogue, this film is able to encapsulate the entire human condition. Through visuals alone, this movie tells a story of life, death, birth, growing up, vindictiveness, regret, and forgiveness. Like any film from Studio Ghibli, the animation is amazing. This is the kind of Japanese animated film that I can easily recommend to people that aren't necessarily into anime. The design of the characters don't have the usual over-the-top expressions that you're used to seeing in anime. Instead, it has a more laid-back, down-to-earth design that's meant to complement the tone that the movie's going for. And everything else from the water, the sand, the trees, and everything in between was animated beautifully with this design in mind. I still think it's a shame that Hollywood has pretty much ditched 2D animation, because I think there's still a lot of untapped potential with this medium. Anyways, this is one of the most unique and memorable animated films I've seen in a while, and I can't wait to watch it again. Oh yeah, before the movie started, I got to listen to some live music.
Saw you with that girl walking around.
Same thing happened at Brigsby Bear.
I don't get why these dogs want a dog. I chop them up, turn them into dog meat like my clothes are made in China. Rappers be betraying them, but they ain't wearing fake designer that displays a fake persona.
Another thing I like about Traverse City is all the musicians that you see all over the place during these kinds of events. Another thing I love about Traverse City, the restaurants. Later that night, I saw a French horror film called Raw. It was weird, fucked up, funny, and I highly recommend it to horror fans. At first, the movie just felt like a shallow, gross-out film, and if the whole movie was nothing but that, I probably wouldn't find it that interesting. But once the psychological aspect of the film kicked in, I was hooked from beginning to end. The only time I was really taken out of the film was some asshole in the theater yelled, "Hey Bobo, you wanna smoke later?" I'm not even joking, that actually fucking happened. But anyways, this movie definitely knows how to fuck with your head. I have to admit, it's hard for me to judge French actors since I only speak English, but for what it's worth, all of the actors seem to fit their characters well, and when a character needed to look creepy, they looked really fucking creepy. I'm trying to be as vague as possible when talking about this movie because it's one of those films that's more effective the less you know about it going in. I thought it was kind of odd in the pamphlet for the film festival it said, "Can a gory horror film convert more people to vegetarianism than 1,000 documentaries touting the meatless lifestyle?" Because the movie wasn't really about that. Yeah, the main character starts off as a vegetarian, but the movie is less about converting people to a certain lifestyle and more about addiction. It's about an insufferable craving that's harmful to both yourself and the people around you. If anything, this film could be interpreted as a metaphor for something like severe alcoholism or heavy drug use. Considering the fact that this movie also satirizes college life and party culture, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they were going for. Speaking of which, this is one aspect of the film that caught me completely by surprise. And speaking as someone who grew tired of that college party party everyday lifestyle. It was pretty gratifying to see another country basically take the piss out of that culture, even though I thought that pissing scene was kind of stupid and unnecessary. Now, even though I enjoyed this film, I can't really recommend it to everyone. Like I said, I'm recommending this to specifically horror fans, and even then, if you're more acquainted with modern American horror films, apparently the French don't fuck around when it comes to horror, because this is more fucked up than even what I was anticipating. So yeah, if this movie looks interesting to you, go see it once it gets a wider release. So I got to watch this movie in my favorite theater ever, the State Theater. Look at that. Isn't that just beautiful? In fact, this year during the festival, the MPAA named the State Theater the best place to watch a movie in the world. There's also the Bijou Theater, which is right next to the beach, and every night during the festival they bring out a big screen to show a free movie outside. So the next day, I didn't have any movies to see, but I did have some classes. This is another thing that I loved about the festival. They offer one-day courses, most of which cost only $5, and they teach you the basics of filmmaking, such as script writing, lighting on a budget, and experimenting with sound. One class even took place on a boat, which was really cool. It was meant to teach us how to properly film and light your subject under rough conditions. As someone who grew tired of the traditional education system, it was really nice to experience an alternative option to your usual college degree, and I feel like I learned a lot from these classes. So the third movie that I saw at the film festival was Manifesto, and it completely blew me away. Before going into this film, the only thing I really knew about it was the setup. It's a segmented film where Cate Blanchett is the main character in each segment. I think she's a pretty great actress, and seeing her as widely different characters in one film, on top of visually stunning images, seemed pretty interesting to me. Now, to any casual viewer that's watching this review, before watching this movie, I think it's important to know what the Dada movement is. Dada was an artistic movement created after World War II. It was a rejection of all things logic to make the statement that any country involved in an atrocity such as World War II was undeserving of logical art. Not only does the movie mention the movement in one of its first segments, but the entire film is pretty much made in the same style as Dada. This film uses the Dadaist philosophy to make a statement on how the economic state of this country has not just affected the working class, but the whole film industry of America. Movies are already such a risky business when it comes to money. Factor that to a country with an extremely flawed economic system that suffered a 3-year recession, and the fact that this is the same country that releases the most movies in 1 year, and as a result, we have an industry that is terrified of taking risks, to differentiate from the norm, to be original. As someone who has also complained about films that lack any sort of originality, I found this film to be a huge breath of fresh air. The film also makes the point that over time we have conditioned audiences to accept only one type of film from the moment they're children, to the point where they'll reject anything that differs from the norm. And what's really funny is that at the very end, the guy behind me only proved the movie right on this point by saying, "Well, that was a load of shit." So yeah, as you can imagine, this movie won't please everyone, but I assure you that it's at least worth giving a chance. I could see this movie receiving a cult following once it gets a wider release. I'm definitely gonna do an in-depth analysis video on this film as soon as I can get the Blu-ray. So once you get the chance, see this film as soon as you can. Hi. Sure, why not?
What's the fake meaning? Are they for it or not?
I think they're against it.
I have no idea.
I think so too. That's what I took.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand these people.
You mentioned something about.
Look for the bare necessities, the simple.
And you thought the lines at Disney World bad? So the last film that I saw at the Traverse City Film Festival was Brigsby Bear, and it was a great way to end the festival. This is one of the best comedies I've seen in a very long time. The plot is basically about a man-child that's obsessed with a children's show that's basically on the same level as Cool Cat or something you'd see on the Everything is Terrible YouTube channel. And through twists and turns, he finds out that new episodes of the show will never be produced, and he decides to finish the plotline of the show himself. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are listening to what I'm describing about the plot and thinking that it sounds cringeworthy, but believe me, when I say that the twist that I mentioned earlier makes this concept extremely hilarious and engaging. If you're really curious, the plot synopsis on IMDb spoils this unfortunately. But the reason why I'm not mentioning it here is because this is another one of those films that benefits with watching with as blank of a slate as you possibly can. James Popin is an extremely well-written character. I love how he's written in a way that you have to learn to like him as the film goes on. In the very first scene that he's in, I had no idea if I was supposed to like him, hate him, feel sorry for him, or feel embarrassed for him. Something just didn't feel right. But once I fully understood the situation he was thrown into, I couldn't help but laugh along with his antics, and I really wanted to see him finish this crazy project of his. And hey, look, it's Mark Hamill in a non-Star Wars role! What was really cool about Mark's role in the film is that it allowed him to use his skills as both an on-screen actor and a voice actor. For those of you that don't know, on top of being Luke Skywalker, he's also the voice of the Joker in a lot of Batman shows and video games.
You fell for the old sick Joker guy, Batman.
When he was on screen, I could recognize it was him, but I still thought he did a pretty great job portraying his character. And whenever he did the voice for Brigsby Bear, it was hysterical. So yeah, I highly recommend watching Brigsby Bear as soon as you can. Much like Manifesto and Raw, I'm not sure how wide of a release these films will get. I hope enough people watch this film, because if this movie becomes a box office bomb, that would just be unbearable. What the fuck am I doing in my life? So yeah, that was pretty much my experience at the Traverse City Film Festival. If you love movies and you notice that there's a film festival near you, I highly suggest going. Not only is it a great way to see films that are currently in the underground, but it's a great way to meet people that are part of the industry. Now, if you'll excuse me, I gotta go make an obligatory video about the Emoji Movie, since that's a cool thing to do these days.